If you know Nigerians, then you know that they love their parties, the one popularly called Owambe. But the current pandemic has impacted how we live, play, and work, including how we party. Estimated to be worth $20 billion, with Lagos taking the major share of the value. The entertainment and event industry in Nigeria has taken a big hit since the coronavirus pandemic forced countries all over the world to lock down and cancel large gatherings in 2020. But how have players in the industry been dealing with the pandemic?
It's been rough. The entertainment industry essentially thrives on people power, people gathering in places for concerts, weddings, AGMs, all manners of events, and is usually set up for a particular purpose as a vehicle of communication between the clients and an audience. So when business is bad, there's really not much that clients can do.
So our first concern was, okay, so how are our clients going to do business? Because mentally we're thinking more from a corporate strategic direction. How are they going to run business and then ask us to do events? Because our events are premised on a corporation wants to do either a launch, they want to do a corporate meeting, they want to have an end of year party, they want to have a rebranding event. So for us, we're now trying to think, okay, all of those things are not going to happen. So how are they going to generate income? And so we quickly had to start thinking of that.
My first personal reaction was, like everyone else, was this, right? We had been following the news all over the world, and I guess nobody really realized how close to home it was going to hit and for how long. So I think the first thing was safety for myself, for my clients, very important. And that's a bit bittersweet because whilst you couldn't have events, you knew that it was imperative that you stayed safe and you kept your people safe.
For everybody, it wasn't planned. So nobody was prepared. It just came suddenly and everything just came down.
Nigeria's most resourceful industries is now bleeding with no end in sight because most of the big social, corporate events and major annual concerts cannot hold. Even months after the lockdown was eased, concert organizers who had hoped to cash in on the festive season were disappointed when government forced them to cancel their shows.
When business is bad, there's really not much that clients can do. Business is bad because there's a COVID restriction. People are restricted from their regular run of activities because of the COVID protocols in place. So it's been really bad. Even as people are going back to school and returning back to work in piecemeal, the event space has still remained very much closed, locked down, which again needs addressing. If people can go to school, why can't people go to events?
It's such a wide industry and we end up touching so many people that with us not working, it impacts those people as well.
I tried to check online. I don't know, but I know that we employ a lot of people, tons of people, But now you see somebody just maybe hanging around in the area, you be like, this guy is jobless. But you never saw him before. But there's no work for him anymore, right? So, because even now with virtual, let's assume it is the events are not cheaper, but sometimes you need fewer manpower. They are not cheaper to execute. So for example, if I have a virtual production, maybe I'm using 20 people. Maybe for an in-person production, I was using 60. That's a third. That's a third gone.
From planners to decorators, food caterers to drinks vendors, confectioners, security outfits to ushers, photographers to videographers, DJs to music bands, MCs to comedians, and to other support staff, the event and entertainment industry's long value chain is now in danger.
The pandemic, it's strange. I mean, never experienced that until it happened. It has greatly affected the events and, special project industry, marketing, direct communication, and all that. And there is no other way than to say it's practically shut down the business.
Thinking about it, those who do like in the creative hub, then you get to those that will actually do the activation and what they need to do the activation, equipment. From equipment, you break down to lights, sound, screen, stage. Then you go to deco. For other hospitality, you go to catering, you go to ushering, you go to people who do management from data capturing at events. So it's a whole long chain to the drivers. I mean, to the guys who clean, to the guy who, the carpenter who works every weekend in one event venue or the other doing stages or doing banners, to the printer, people that print invitation cards, people that print banners, people that do advertising materials. So it goes all the way down. You can, for one person involved in the entertainment business, you also have like a backlog of dependents that you also have to deal with. You have your landlord you have to pay. You have your mechanic or your laundryman. So it's a whole world of its own. So imagine that at the source, you can't have an event. It begins to cascade.
I don't even think there's any other industry that has been much affected, like the event industry. Because as we used to, every weekend, we have at times 10 to 15 events, but now there's nothing. So I want government to just stand and help them in any way they can.
So the impact that people don't realize are those guys, my truck drivers that would normally come in, and they make anywhere from, like, depending on where they're coming in from and what they're bringing, I rent a truck for 120,000 naira. When the truck driver comes, he gets his allowance for sleeping over. If he has to sleep over at the event location, that's another 10,000 naira for him and his family. That money's gone, and so those guys are impacted. What about my ushers? So think about it. An usher at an event would make anywhere from 10,000 to 20,000 for each event. They're not making anything.
With over countless events held annually across the country, Lagos, Nigeria's entertainment capital, accounts for about 80% of the major events that happen in the country. It is estimated that the industry lost about 1 trillion naira as a result of the pandemic in 2020, with the likelihood of that figure going up in 2021 if things do not pick up. With an average of 200 personnel playing different roles per event venue, many of the men and women who depend on the industry for their livelihoods have now been thrown out of jobs.
A lot of those part-time people are not educated people, right? So they're not technically savvy people. So you can't say, oh, okay, I use Bumi to help me carry chairs. Okay, Bumi, come and help me manage this online portal or help me call my clients. Most of them are not able to transcend to a new role. They are who they are. And so I don't know how we're going to be able to get them into the space. And like I said earlier, my fear is that we are going to find more and more people who are now going to fall into the category of not having something to feed their family at the end of the day. And it's a reality.
People are having difficult to sustain their businesses. Many businesses have sent their employees on indefinite leave. Most have changed from employment more or less to like freelance relationships, project by project basis, which is the reality of the business. You can't keep spending money that you're not earning, or you have no idea where you're going to earn anyway.
Events is a chain. It's a link between different professions, different people. So it's once one is broken, it affects everybody. So I want to say that it's almost like the multiplier effect affects, how will I put it? More people, I think, in event industry than any other profession, because you have tourism, you have hotels, you have restaurants, you have a lot of people, the caterers, you have the waiters, you have the ushers, you have the photographers. So a lot of different chains, and they have all their staff, even to the suppliers of our materials to buy in the market. It's affecting them also.
So what is the way forward for this industrial sector? To survive the heat, some event planners have embraced outdoor locations, while some are improvising on best ways to organize events without flouting the rules. But how profitable can these be in the scheme of things?
One of our clients is MultiChoice. I'm not sure if you know, and we've done AMVCA for the last 7 years. So you can imagine a MultiChoice, are they going to do an AMVCA this year? Who knows? How do you then ensure that you are still able to support them and coming up with different ideas and different ways of them to still be able to present what one would call an AMVCA COVID compliant, right? AMVCA used to call in about 3,000 to anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 guests into one room at a hotel. That's never going to happen. Never. It's never going to happen. Not in 2020. In 2021, that's not going to happen, right? And you can't even call 1,000 people into a room because it's not feasible to call 1,000 people in. So you can imagine going from 3,000 people to, let's say, 200. That's going to be tough.
We have situations where people have begun to think of innovative ways of doing things, trying to generate, just trying to, bolster the economy, basically. But I think we'll still have a loss. That's my projection. There's definitely going to still be a loss because the virtual digital world doesn't cater to everyone, doesn't cater to every objective.
Though restrictions have been lifted on events, the COVID-19 protocols that have been mandated by the NCDC and state government only allow for 50 persons to gather indoors for any event. But some event planners believe that if worship centers are allowed to hold services with more than 50 persons, then event organizers should not be restricted if they abide by the safety protocols.
So what I'm saying here is, aspect of the economy and national life is opening up. Schools are going back. People are in the markets every day. I mean, I'm not preaching reckless behavior, but at the end of it, the event space, which is even a lot more regulated, you can check how people behave when they come in there. You can ensure that COVID-19 prevention protocols are adhered to very strictly. We are put down. So I do understand the reason why government thinks events have a higher risk of spreading COVID than people who are crushed up in buses every day without prevention, people who are in the market every day, and people who go about in school. I don't know the logic behind that, but it just seems to be an impression that they have.
Still going to be live events. We have to have live events. There's no way around it. We're just going to do it differently. So we've done a couple in the last, of course, from October to January, we actually had done a few of them where they were in multiple rooms. So it's a live event, but they're in multiple rooms. So you don't have 100 people gathered in one room. You have 100 people in 10 different rooms. So you can imagine it's still a live event. People are still there. You just have to be very creative in terms of how you're going to use the technology in that space.
Another contentious issue is the issue of bailout for sectors most affected by the pandemic. Nigeria's central bank announced a credit relief of $136.6 million to businesses affected by the coronavirus pandemic in 2020. A good number of service providers, professionals and personnel in the industry were hopeful for some financial support from the government, but it doesn't look like anyone has benefited.
It's not straightforward how you would actually benefit from it. So the system is set up, and yes, they have said that you could benefit from it. They can give you a bailout. Unfortunately, they didn't sit with people within the industry for us to be able to advise them on how to ensure that it gets to the right people.
We all should remember when former President Goodluck Jonathan, I was at the hotel, we did the event, when he promised a certain amount for Nollywood that they will give to the event and entertainment industry, the filmmakers and all that. when they were doing aggressive marketing and campaign. I'm sure you know most of the actors and actresses are shouting they've not been paid. So who shares the money? Whose account does the money go?
Even though we're not in on a lockdown, we still have to find ways of moving ahead. And unlike the other industries I've mentioned, they actually had government bailouts. We don't have. I know that some different associations, you have ILEA, you have APWEM, you have Rental Association, you have all sorts of associations that have tried to have these conversations with government. I haven't seen anything that's come out of it. I know I saw some questionnaires at some point, or feel how much you've lost. Then again, because people are quite distrustful, you're worried and wondering, okay, why do you even want to get all this information? Do you really want to help us? Or you're just filling some data banks with our info so that when everything comes back, you come back for us for tax issues? Is it really because you want to bail us out? People are even hesitant because nobody has really addressed the economic part of this, right? And we need money.
As Nigerians wait eagerly for life to return to normal so that they can hit the dance floor in their colorful ashwebis pre-COVID-19 era, it is imperative for the federal and state government and industry players to fashion a solution that will keep the industry afloat and ensure the thousands of men and women who earn their livelihoods from the sector are not left in the lurch while they are waiting for the party to get started again.